Well, hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. This holiday weekend, Saturday, late afternoon, coming up on 4 o'clock Eastern Time. And I guess with the holiday, the 4-day holiday weekend, uh, it really, in a way, doesn't matter what time I broadcast. Everybody's doing other things. So if you happen to be around, you can watch it live now. That's great. If not, you're catching this on a replay later on this evening. Hi to everybody that's on board late this afternoon. Nice to see you guys here. Greenfire, Dio Nankamar, Justin Barrett, uh, Jay Gotzich, Reaver 501, Ben Harris, 99 Wolves, and 99 Wolves. By the way, I can't find your Twitter handle. It doesn't come up, so just go to mine and follow me, and then I'll be able to pull it up. Okay, that goes for anybody, by the way. It's at Joe Chaffee. So if you'd like to just follow my Twitter handle, you can do that. I'm on Facebook at meteorologistjoechaffee.com. I'm sorry, I'm at Facebook at meteorologist Joe Chaffee. My website is meteorologistjoechaffee.com. All right, we got precip that's on the way, and of course we've been kind of fighting the cold, the warmer air, not having a whole lot of success holding on to that cold air. For those of you that want to see some frozen or precipitation, I don't know anybody that really wants to see freezing precipitation. There's a lot of freezing rain. I had the Penn State game was on, and they were talking about the fact that there was freezing rain falling. Here's the New York Upton radar as of 4 p.m. Just finally starting to see some precip getting into range here, coming in from the southwest, but the temperatures are way above freezing. Especially along coastal areas, it's really astounding when you think about it, how cold it was. I mean, it was just truly bitter. We had the third. Some areas had their third or second or fourth coldest Thanksgiving ever, and it just warmed up in such a big hurry. The atmosphere is going to want to do us. I guess we could call it a snapback rally whenever it's stretched to extremes. And we were talking about anomalies that were at 20, 25 or more degrees below average. So you can't hold that. You just can't. And the high went out to the east of the Jersey coast and pretty much straight out. It didn't anchor up in New England and really wedge down strongly into the Appalachians. These are some of the temperatures that we're seeing at the moment. Everybody, at least in my forecast zone, except for northeastern Pennsylvania, where we still have some spots in valleys where cold air does tend to get trapped down near freezing. But you go to Scranton, it's 42. You go into one of the inner valleys to the south and east of Scranton, it's 32. It's 34 in some of the areas in the northwestern counties of New Jersey, mid 30s in the Hudson Valley. There might be one or two spots where the temperatures in some of the valley areas in the Hudson Valley and in northern New Jersey could be still down below freezing, but that should be few and far between. And then you're looking at 40s up into southern New England. The wider temperature profile here shows the extent of it not only shows where the warming is, but it also shows you what's left of the cold air that is trapped in parts of central Pennsylvania. You still have some pockets of 32-degree readings. You can see them here, but even down to the south where they had some freezing rain overnight and early this morning, those areas are trying to go above 32. And when we look at the temperature plots late this afternoon going into the 4 o'clock hour, you're seeing 60s here and in the Carolinas. I'm pointing this out because there is a warm front. There's a coastal front that has backed in from the southeast and it has parked itself pretty far inland. And this is where we're going to get a secondary low to develop that's going to move up the coast during tonight and strengthen when it's off the New Jersey coast overnight. It's not going to change anything in terms of the outcome, but what it is going to do is probably enhance the rain and produce some heavy rain and gusty winds for much of southern New York, the gusty winds for the coast, of course, for Long Island and coastal New Jersey. But we will see heavy rains extending from parts of upstate New York and the Hudson North in the Upper Hudson Valley down to the coast. And in fact, there are flood watches that are up. I want to just see if they've updated. This is about the time when the Weather Service is updating their stuff. And oh, actually, look at this. We've got blizzard warnings up now, and this is for the second system that is going to be moving through the Central Plains and headed for the Great Lakes. And we now have also an expanded winter storm warning that is up for. I'm thinking Chicago's in this. If my eyes don't deceive me, I think Chicago is now under a winter storm warning. One of the big issues with regards to um, the Chicago area was whether they would be just to the south and east of the heavy snow band, or perhaps the system shifting further south on recent model runs would put Chicago in the thick of it. And it appears that, at least from what the Weather Service is seeing and from what I saw earlier today, that indeed that may very well be the case. I'm just kind of curious. I'm going to just punch up their forecast in terms of amounts of what they're going for. So they're going for 1 to 2 on Sunday and an additional 3 to 5 Sunday night. So a grand total of 4 to 7 is being forecast for the Chicago area. Now, you got to watch this a little carefully, because there are two things in play. First off, there's warm air there initially, and you will take you out to this part of the Midwest. And at least right now, temperatures are actually in the mid and upper 40s here. The colder air, and when we put the surface map, you'll see where the polar boundary is. The colder air is still up in in through Minnesota and the Dakotas, and is going to be moving southward. It's just going to take a little bit of time. But when you don't have it there to begin with, and you're a forecaster and you're waiting for the cold air to come in, it can be a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation. It doesn't. Okay, this map has been updated. Okay, very good. So we do have winter storm watches up for parts of interior Michigan. It looks like they went to an advisory in southwestern Michigan. You've got the winter storm warning that is posted up for much of northern Illinois and northeastern Missouri. And then you go to this blizzard warning now that's up for northern Missouri, southern Iowa, except for the eastern parts of both states, and then running westward from there. It looks like into. I'm trying to see where the state lines are. They're a little hard to pick out on this map. Let me bring the opacity down. Maybe I can make it out a bit better. Just a second. Okay, so let's lighten it up just a little bit. Still having trouble with the state lines. Hang on. Perhaps if we just widen this out a little. Yeah, this is really, I'm having tough trouble. Okay, so I can see where the back edge of Nebraska is. All right, so you've got the blizzard warnings up for parts of Nebraska and for Kansas. We'll go back to this map because it's a little easier for me to see. My almost 60-year-old eyes are not dealing with this well. And winter weather advisories on either side of that. You've got some a peppering of winter storm warnings up for eastern Wyoming and parts of the Colorado Rockies. Again, this is going to be for storm system number 2. The snow amounts, just want to see if they've updated this. They may not have, but let's see. Okay, they actually have in some areas on the digital forecast. So I thought I just saw, there we go. At least out through Monday, it looks like they've enhanced an area of heavy snow between Chicago and Milwaukee of I guess that would be an 8 to 10 inch band if you want to look at it that way. And it looks like they've extended that 6-inch line down to the Chicago area, and you can see where the heavy snow is. The darker blues going back through Iowa, northern Missouri into parts of southern Nebraska. Likely to see these areas, by the way, beef up their numbers based on what the models were producing today. And we also have the latest NAM model that we can take a look at. So here's the U.S. satellite loop at the moment. You've got the moisture in the east, that long arm, the upper trough is basically this long arm that extends from the great eastern lakes down to the mid-Atlantic coast, and that's lifting up to the northeast. You've got some subtropical moisture coming in through Baja California into Texas, but that is really staying separate from the energy that's coming down from the northern Rockies and into the plains. And then you can see it here. They're just those two, distinct separate entities. It probably prevents this this system from becoming, a really wrapped up big snowstorm, wreaking havoc in a large geographic area. This is instead going to be a bit tighter because of the fact that the moisture is somewhat limited. On the surface map, let's just go back to the east for 1 second, because there is this surface low. This is on the 18Z or 1 p.m. surface plot. These plots are done every 3 hours. We've got a low sitting near Wilmington, a warm front or basically an inland coastal front is what this is, but it behaves kind of like a warm front because you're in the 50s and 60s to the east of it, and you're in the 40s and 30s to the northwest of it. The cold air just getting trapped down the Appalachians and in a very small way in the northernmost part of the Appalachians. The high just went out too far south and east. It's one thing when they are up in New England and you can buy some time that way. When they go out the east of the New Jersey coast and move straight to the east, they are of no help in holding in cold air. But this surface low is going to ride up along this coastal frontal boundary and just basically find its way to off the Jersey coast and south of Long Island by the time we get to Sunday morning. Now with the second system, here's your low that's developing in Wyoming and Colorado. The polar front is in northern Iowa right now, northern Nebraska, northern Wyoming. So that's the cold air that's going to be really getting involved and changing the whole temperature profile that you see right now across Nebraska, and to southern Iowa, northern Missouri, where you've got temperatures basically in the 40s and 50s. So that's going to change as this low pulls out and pulls away to the northeast. Here's the radar as of 4:11 p.m. In the east. You've got this pretty loaded area of rain. It's a narrow band, but it's been moving pretty slowly. So it's taken a good part of the whole day for this rain to kind of work its way through Virginia, and it's only about halfway done. There's some heavy rain embedded in that, and that's going to hold together. And then if you take a look down here, right off near Hatteras, this is where we've got this low on the coastal front, and there looks like there's some thunderstorm activity there. Usually a sign that you're getting some kind of coastal low development when you see those thunderstorms pop up inside the warm sector. And then with the next system, you're seeing snows break out through the Dakotas and into parts of northern Nebraska where that polar boundary is already through. Some snows back through Colorado and Wyoming, and of course the radars kind of lose the precip that's out here in the mountains because the radars just don't have, just can't see it. But it is relatively extensive based on the surface observations, and of course we saw with the winter storm watches and warnings that are up. So why don't we take a look at what's happening? You know what we could do? I think it's probably better if we just deal with these two systems separately in terms of their impact. And first off, we've got the system on the NAM in the east, and again, this narrow band. But when you look at this, they'll go to the lower part of the picture here, and you'll see a low that's going to come out, that coastal low that's going to develop. There it is, off the Virginia coast, off the Delmarva Peninsula. It's a tight little secondary, and the gradient actually gets fairly tight here during tonight. So not only does it have a comma head of heavy rain, but you'll probably have some gusty winds to gale force. Would not at all shock me to see along the New Jersey coast and along the south shore of Long Island. It's one tight little low. Sometimes these things can surprise, and then it'll move away to the northeast. Weather conditions improve on Monday. As far as frozen or freezing precipitation is concerned, the model's not producing a whole heck of a lot in terms of freezing rain. In upstate New York. It does get into a little bit of snow up in northern Maine. I know they've got some winter weather advisories up for New Hampshire and Vermont. There's probably going to be some trapped cold air in parts of northern New England that's going to produce some sleet and freezing rain. And now with respect to system number 2, I think we can go to this Midwest view, which will help. And the first system that is affecting the east, you've got low pressure up near Lake Superior, and this this long occluded front or warm front that extends out from it that pulls away. Well, you can watch the snow and the low from the second system for Sunday. It drops down into southern Kansas. You've got this area of snow that spreads out to the southeast, the darker blues, heavy snow, and here's where Chicago by Sunday afternoon. Doesn't really do very much until late in the day. You get into some rain at the start. Now, the key is going to be the strength of that low in the track to get that cold air coming in. And the NAM and the GFS have shifted this far enough to the south. Uh, Earlier, this was seen like as if it was going to be affecting northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, but the block that is building is forcing everything to be further south. And this is where the impact is by shifting the heavier snow instead of in northern Iowa or southern Minnesota. Now it's in southern Iowa and into northern Missouri. And that trend has been visible there on the models for the last couple of days. So Chicago gets into some heavy snow for a few hours if the NAM is right. And then the low pulls away to near Detroit. So they get mostly rain, except maybe some flurries at the end. And when this system impacts the east, this is for later Monday night. You're going to have a similar situation here with a primary low that goes to the eastern lakes and a stretched out front and possibly a secondary low that develops here. This one, the low develops a little bit later, a little bit further to the north. It's off the New Jersey coast by the time we get to Monday evening. It does enhance the rain for Long Island and southern New England. Those areas seem to catch it before that low moves away up into east of Boston. And this one might be one that you see a rain changing to snow situation for central and northern New England on Tuesday, and Maine stands to benefit pretty well if this is correct. So the total snowfall. We'll do New England's first. I know we're kind of jumping back around, but I think that depending on the position and development of that secondary low, you might want to juice up amounts. Maybe the NAM is a bit overdone with some of these numbers, but there could be some juiced up amounts up across northern New Hampshire and Maine. Again, this is more from. This is going to be really mostly the second system rather than the first. A lot of what you see back here, I mean, this is ice that's being indicated by the NAM. And the second round that you see popping up in West Virginia, uh, I'm guessing because that's on Monday during the early morning hours on Tuesday. So that's probably some lake effect and backside stuff going on. And of course, you see the snows that the NAM is producing across Michigan. We'll go to the Midwest view again to take a look at what the total snowfalls here on this model is. And west of Lake Michigan, if the surface low takes that further south track and you get just a little bit of deepening, the NAM is pretty juiced up. I think it's probably safe to cut those amounts in half. They're probably overdone. So I'm kind of leaning in that direction. I think the Weather Service numbers are entirely reasonable. Look, if you're forecasting 8 to 10 and it winds up being 10 to 15, are you really going to have an issue with that in terms of the validity, how valid the forecast was? If only because of the fact that after a certain point, it does kind of become meaningless. It's sort of like when it gets hot and it's 100 versus 105. It's, I mean, you really you're burning up either way. But the NAM liquid precip is, where is it? Sorry about that. I kind of always like to use the NAM, just basically use the NAM liquid precip amounts. And you know what? It is generating some 1.25 inch plus amount. So that is the reason why it's doing what it's doing. I just wonder whether it's a little bit overdone. It's hard to know it's hard to see, with the absence of a real good subtropical jet getting involved in this. I wonder whether those amounts are overdone, unless I'm missing something. And in the east, by the way, the total rainfall amounts from overnight just to back up. So some substantial amounts of rain being generated by the NAM across New Jersey, southeastern Pennsylvania to Long Island on the order of 2 to 4 inches. If you wind up with that low getting wrapped up a bit with that calm ahead of precip tonight, I wouldn't be shocked, and there might even be some lightning and thunder in the mix too. That wouldn't shock me at all. Judging by the strength of the upper air, you've got a pretty strong short wave that's lifting up here on the models. And here we go. So let me just back it up. So right here, here's your shortwave trough that is extending from Minnesota down to the Carolinas. That's a pretty sharp, negatively tilted trough, and it kind of holds. Not only does it hold its own, but holds its own. But part of the trough now, the southeastern half of it, you get this upper low that forms and closes off this very, very tight, small cutoff here. So the NAM's kind of trying to tell you that there's going to be something that's going to try to intensify there off the New Jersey coast. It's not going to impact a large geographic area, but for those areas that are going to be underneath that developing surface low, there could be some bursts of heavy rain during the overnight. And then you can see the next short wave, by the way, as it lifts up toward the Great Lakes. It responds eventually to the block by you've got this upper low that drops down over the western lakes and just sits there. This is going to make it cold here for later Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday until this upper low gets out. You're going to have some rather cold air coming into the east. I don't think it'll be as extreme as what we just saw, but it is going to be cold enough, certainly. Now, let's jump to the GFS really fast. We'll do a quick long range. The block is, all right, come on. Here we go. This is one of those situations, folks, that I think you need to always remember that just how volatile these maps are in the long range. If you think back days ago, the GFS was trying to show blocking going almost as far as the eye can see. And now, about 2 days ago, we started to see the model say no. After about day 6 or 7, the block was going to rapidly break down. And the other issue is with respect to trying to figure out timing. You know, you can have all this blocking in the world, as we said, and you got the ridge in the west and all the rest of it. But when the troughs are not exactly in the right spot, if things aren't timed out correctly, if you've got too much energy running around, there's not going to be much room for any kind of additional storm development. And in terms of how the blocking times out, you know, you do have this blocking high that goes into Labrador with an upper low that's sitting in western Lake Superior, and there's a trough that's going to try to swing around for the latter part of this coming week. But there's no room. There's no room here for it to sharpen. If you look at the flow from the Carolinas, the flow is west-southwest. So if you get any kind of surface low that develops there, it's going to go way offshore anyway. So unless we wind up seeing this whole thing shifting further westward, where it would allow something to swing around and sharpen up, you're probably going to have a relatively uneventful week. The other models, the European, the Canadian, don't really give you an idea, give you any kind of possibility, I believe, that that could happen. And then when we go in the longer range, both the GFS and the European, although to a lesser extent the GFS, to a greater extent the European, try to bring back a ridge in the east as the block breaks down. I think from what I'm seeing, I'm thinking it's temporary. But you know, you look at the European. The European actually has a much stronger ridge that it briefly builds next weekend. If this is right, we're going to have a fairly mild weekend as the cold air. Here's the next trough on the GFS, and as I said, again, no room. Although it does argue that the European is creating a rather cold environment here in the eastern U.S., going all the way down to Florida. But that pulls out, and there's no block to hold the low near Newfoundland to keep the ridge from popping up in the east. So up it comes next weekend, and then you get another trough that's already out in the west that swings around up toward the Great Lakes. It's not a long-lasting ridge in the east, but it does pop up, and does pop up stronger than the GFS does. After that, you know, you kind of have this look to the models where Maybe some chess pieces are going to be moved around. I'm not 100% sure how this is going to play, but if we go to a situation where there's not that much blocking going on, it's going to that may be critical in terms of trying to hold the trough position in the eastern part of the United States. So I'm going to just come back to the chat board real quick today, guys. It's being that we're on a holiday weekend here, so I'm going to keep the discussion fairly short on the chat board. So just give me 1 second. By the way, I appreciate everybody taking their time this afternoon to kind of join in the live stream. As I said, holiday weekends are tough, particularly Thanksgiving. Everybody's away, or you got company over, or you're out shopping, or any one of a dozen other things you could be doing instead of sitting around watching weather live streams. Certainly, Greenfire 919, a period of heavy rain, ground has to be frozen here, lots of runoff. Uh, the ground, the frozen ground isn't going to stay frozen for too long if you're going to have those temperatures shoot up, which they are going to do. You've got flood watches up in the Hudson Valley, yes, but less rain forecasted. I don't know how long the ground. I mean, I know it was really, really cold, but it was only cold. I mean, it was cold below freezing straight through for about 60 to 72 hours. I just don't know if that's enough to keep the ground completely frozen, if temperatures are going to warm up into the 40s, being that this was really the first solid stretch of very cold weather. Um, Real men don't shop, says Freever 501. Yeah, I won't disagree with that. I've always said that the only acceptable stores to shop in are Home Depot, because every guy would like their house to look like they're living inside a garage. Costco, because it's just Costco. I mean, where else could you get a barrel size a barrel of mayonnaise, among other things? And I did add a couple of one other store to this, but Bed Bath and Beyond, if only because you know good cast iron skillet and cookware is extremely important in the creation of good food and good cooking. We are 6 minutes from the new GFS, so that model is going to change somewhat. Yeah, it is, James Hines, but unlike other nights where I might stay for the whole run, I'm thinking I'm not going to do it this time around. Maine Wanderer, where else would I get my weather? Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Um, of all the models, says PlayStation Boss, the NAMAs drove this forecast to never-ending nightmare. And Kevin Rivera, nice that you're here on my YouTube channel. Welcome. Will it snow in Alabama? Not this time, and not for the moment anyway. But hey, with the weather patterns the way they've been, and this weak El Nino, and what appears to be Canada producing some rather cold air masses, I think you're going to get your shot across the South to see some snow this winter across the Gulf states. I think it's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it is going to happen. Bertha Gunter, I just mulched up a ton of something and put them in the flower bed. I hope that they're not hurt. Oaks have oak leaves. Heavy leaves and different varieties can be very thick, I'll say. Uh, and I'm a little sensitive to them too, because I tend to break out sometimes depending on which of my oak trees decides to be extra mean to me. See, just James NASCAR ready for the heavy rain on Long Island tonight. It could wind up being a couple of inches. There might be some local flooding with this. It wouldn't at all shock me. All right, folks, I'm going to put an end to it here. Have a great rest of your afternoon. There'll be some posts going up just really fast. If you're new to the channel, I do have a subscription platform that you might be interested in if weather is your thing. There's a number of folks that are on my Patreon platform, and they seem to be very happy with it. We did a long Patreon live stream earlier this afternoon. Patreon members get a private live stream, usually once a day. I try to make it once a day. Sometimes it doesn't work. But if you'd like to look at it and join up, there's the link for you. It's on the chat board. Also, one other way to support my channel, and it's an easy way if you shop on Amazon. There is an Amazon link to the descriptor to this channel and to the descriptor to this video. If you're watching this on a replay, we are a participant in the Amazon Services Affiliates Program, which is designed for channels like mine to be able to earn fees from Amazon by linking to their sites. So if you shop on Amazon and you use the Joe Stradamus link that I've just put on the chat board, you get your stuff, and Amazon throws me back some coin out of their pocket, and I get a few cigars out of the deal, and everybody's happy. So thank you very much for those of you who have used that. And one other thing, if you are on an Android device, I do have an app that is out on you can get it and download it on Google Play. It covers the forecast areas for northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, and southern Connecticut. That geographic area. Here's the link to that. As far as the Apple side of the equation, we are still working with them and waiting for them to approve it. I'm hoping next week that it's, they're kind of slow. Google's pretty fast. Apple's a bit on the slow side. I'm hoping next week, and as soon as as it comes out, I will put the app link up on the chat board here when we're doing our live streams, and of course it'll be up on my website, and I will add putting it up on Facebook and on Twitter as well. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Saturday. Enjoy the continuation of your holiday weekend, and we will see you tomorrow.